Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for coming today to talk with us about revolutionizing accounting with AI. I'm going to give you some insights on how we are kind of handling AI and the concerns we have, because there's a lot of risks associated with how, just right now, it's crazy the amount of hackers out there that are trying to get into our stuff. And our stuff is so valuable and so important. So before we get into this, let's talk about the agenda. What the heck are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the benefits and risks of remote work. And I have to tell you, for myself right now, being in LA, I am working remotely. I am working off of my daughter's Mac right here, and I've been working with it all week. And there's some great benefits to it, but there's also risks that we need to pay attention to. So we're going to talk about that. How is AI reshaping accounting? Because it is. And I'll tell you what, we're loving it. We're loving it. We're embracing it, and everyone should. And then, of course, we've got Sam and Mandy here, who are the absolute experts in the role that AI has in cybersecurity. So I'm really excited to talk with them about that today, and hopefully keeping top of mind the risks that are associated with the kind of information we have, that personal identifiable information that the IRS and the SEC has become really hard on professionals like us when it comes to cybersecurity. So we gotta watch out, man. So here we are. We are here with just two amazing people. I'm honored to be with Mandy Sullivan and Sam Schumacher, who I'll let you introduce yourselves. Tell everybody what you do. What the heck do you guys do?
I do whatever Sam tells me to do. And
such an easier life doing it that way.
Right, exactly. I am the executive account manager here at Visory. Been with the company for almost 4 years now, and I work with all of our accounting partners.
Without Mandy, there'd be nothing. That's the way I look at it. Mandy.
Right now, I feel like I am the queen of QuickBooks upgrades right now. Everybody on 2021 needs to get up to 2024. That is my bread and butter right now.
Nice. That keeps you busy. That's for sure. Sam, what do you tell Mandy to do? I mean, Sam, introduce yourself.
Well, I tell Mandy to do what she tells me to tell her to do, because really she's running the show. I fall in line and show up where I'm told, and and just support her. But yeah, I mean, my side of things is really just to stay up to speed on how accounting's changing, and what tools you guys are adopting, and figuring out how that's affecting workflows, how that's affecting security postures and things like that. So that's what I do.
Great. Well, thank you for doing that, because without you, I would be not safe. And I need you to keep me safe. So that's the way I see it. And for those of you who may not know me, my name is Dawn Brolin. I am the designated motivator for accounting professionals. My goal and my drive in life is to help other practitioners avoid the pitfalls that I have fallen down, breaking my face, breaking arms, all kinds of body parts. I'm hoping that we can keep other people away from that. I am part of the Intuit Tax Council, working with them, the ADP Advisory Board. We just had a big meeting last week. It was really great, the things we're doing there. And the Avalara QuickBooks Advisory Board, just trying to help those teams move forward and help the accounting professional get better. And again, designated motivator. And I also am the CEO of Powerful Accounting. So I have my own firm. We're a firm of 3 total. It's great. We have great workflows. We have great tools that we use, and we all work remotely. And so that's kind of really exciting, but really important that we're here to talk about what the heck we got to watch out for. So, of course, the benefits and risks of remote work. At the end of the day, Sam, what's great about it is you get flexibility, right? So there's that flexibility piece. We have some cost savings here, where we're not having to have a brick and mortar building that we have to sustain and maintain, which works out really well. And then the employee satisfaction. Let's talk about that for a minute. So you guys, it looks to me like you guys are in a corporate building, but I know you're not. So are you guys remote today?
I am. Yeah, I'm working from home every day.
Every day. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think this is something that people are not necessarily always thinking top of mind from the employee's perspective. So Sam, what are you finding for yourself that is really great benefits for you from that employment satisfaction piece?
Well, for me personally, I've been remote for going on a decade. So, it's hard for me to really think about what changed from, going to the office every day to doing what I do now. But, from the conversations I'm having with other people, in the last 4 years, a lot's changed, right? March 2020, everything got upended, and we started to see this big, huge acceleration to remote work. And what we're hearing now is employees don't want to be mandated to come back to the office necessarily. So we're seeing the bigger enterprises saying, you really should come back twice a week, maybe 3 times a week.
Right.
Employees are loving the flexibility. We're seeing that people are more productive. There was a big scare. Oh, we moved to remote work. People aren't going to be as productive. And that just didn't turn out to be true. People were just as, if not more productive, especially in the knowledge worker space, right? There's certain kinds of workers that really should be in an office, should be there. I think about developers. There's a lot of benefit to developers being able to bounce ideas off each other in real time in a room with a giant whiteboard. And you can get a lot of that done remotely. But when we're looking at accounting, we're looking at bookkeeping, you guys are rocking it remotely. It's so simple, it's so easy, and the third-party applications that are integrating with all your software, they're making it even easier, especially with the generative AI that they're starting to build into their tools. It's really everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. Mandy, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I'm going to continue to be as productive as possible because I never want to have to go back into an office again. Just the freedom that it gives you to be able to work remotely is just something that I wouldn't want to put in jeopardy. So I'm just as productive, if not more productive.
I love that. That's so true.
There's the business leader side of this too, though, right? It's on the cost savings of not necessarily having to have a brick and mortar space, or maybe being able to downsize that to a much smaller office for offsites or onsites. And there's benefit on the business level. We're starting to see business leaders use the shift to full remote work as an opportunity to build resiliency into their business as well, and in terms of their cybersecurity posture.
Absolutely. And I think that really at the end of the day, some people, I think when this first started, and you're right, COVID made a big impact. Now we've honestly been, remote for a long time. I would say not quite a decade, Sam, but long enough, right? And so thinking about where they're able to do the things they need to do. This is a simple example. Like, I have no problem if one of my staff members is like, I got to go rotate the laundry, for instance. I think people are having a sense of security and a sense of satisfaction that they can do a little thing like, I'm going to go make myself some lunch. How many employees would sit at their desk and have their lunch at their desk? So now they're able to go ahead and move and do other things. But the communication is, so let's think about the risks around communication, which I think historically, and if there wasn't such great communication tools that we use today, technological tools, communication would be a really big issue. Like you were saying, Sam, you've got people bouncing ideas off of each other. Now they're not doing that maybe on a big whiteboard in front of each other, but now they're using a Zoom tool, or they're using something else that allows them to communicate. But it is a risk. I can't see you. I can't, get into a room with you and do this. Now I look at it, for me personally as the leader, I'm like, if I had people come into an office, that means I'd have to be there too. Like, I'd have to go in at 9. Like, that sounds horrifying.
How much would that change your lifestyle, Dawn? You're on the road constantly for speaking engagements and conferences. So it'd be like you were this remote worker and everybody else felt like they had to be in the office. Yeah.
And there can be, to be honest with you, there can be some presence of jealousy.
Mm-hmm.
There can be some presence of, oh, Brolin's not in the office as much because she's traveling, she's doing all these things. And I've experienced that. In a firm that I was with, where I was always out on the road, either speaking at a chamber of commerce, or I was out doing a lunch and learn, or doing all these things. So I'm not in the office hammering at a keyboard. And the people that are there hammering on the keyboard think that the person that's not in the office isn't being productive or helping the business move forward. That's truly not the case. So now that piece, and that is a risk. That is a communication risk, and it can be an issue. And certainly as we move on and think about data breaches, now we don't, and this is where Sam and Mandy, you're gonna give us some good stuff, because thinking about, as a leader myself, knowing I have Tracy in Florida, having no idea what she has for cybersecurity, what computer is she even working on? I'm not watching to see if she's using the computer I sent her. I have no idea. I have no idea what computer she's working on. So data breaches due to the lack of security with end devices is huge. That's probably my biggest one, because I can't control what they're using to open up applications, open up, even QBO, which has people's payment information in it, those types of things. I have no idea. So data breaches is a huge risk of remote work. Sam, you go.
Yeah, well, we're gonna dig a little deeper into that one, I think, in a few slides when we get into a comparison. But I am noticing on this slide that, Dawn, I think we were remiss in not adding burnout as a risk. I think that with
Ooh.
remote teams, we don't talk about that enough. You've
Yes.
got certain people that are really obsessive. I'm one of those people, and I'll find myself at my desk for maybe 12 or 14 hours on occasion. I don't do it too often anymore. And I'll be like, well, wait a minute, what am I neglecting outside of Visory? And so I think burnout's a risk. And I think what we're seeing with AI is that with the increase in productivity, we should be able as business leaders to use that to our advantage and use that as a tool to help our employees have better work-life balance and harmony there.
I love that. That's such a great point. I didn't even think of that. You're right. We missed that one because it's
Yeah.
true. Because now you have
Yeah.
access to your stuff every minute. Like, oh, I can just jump in and answer a few emails when you're on vacation. That makes no sense. So, and then of course, cyber attacks, we know that that's we'll talk some more about that too. Cyber attacks. If you're not in control of what type of device your people are using, and if you don't stress it and educate them enough to understand what those risks are, I think that's another piece. You think about the communication issues where, do we talk about it enough? I don't know, right? So we've got to put some measures in place to protect ourselves from those types of things. And so here we are, we're talking about some things around managing those remote workers. And here's where we end up, right? So the device management, I want you to talk a little bit about that, Sam, because that's that was my Visory moment when you guys said we do end device management. I'm like, that's it, because no one else is doing it. Talk to me, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about data breaches, right? So we'll use it in that context. So we can't always, especially with the rapid adoption of these SaaS solutions. So web browser based, you log in with a username and password, right? You're not having to log in to a server because it's not a desktop software anymore. And so things are shifting quite a bit. So when we talk about device management, there's a couple ways we can talk about it. So we can talk about it in terms of you're a firm and you have mandated that everyone's going to work off of laptops that you provide, period. So with that, there are policies that managed service providers and managed security service providers can put into place that will make accessing work resources impossible unless you're on a known and trusted device. So that's one of the ways, and that's some of what we're doing for you. And then there's another side to device management that is more security related, meaning making sure the operating system is up to date. So all those patches that come out. As users, we hate rebooting our computers. I think about. I
rebooted Emily's right before we started on accident.
Yeah, you did. That's right. I think about a customer of ours that they called in. They were like, we're having the worst performance. We're having the worst, but Visory's down. We're having the worst performance. And come to find out, Visory wasn't down. We had a handful of users at a client's office that hadn't rebooted their machines in over 70 days.
Wow.
So yes, you can absolutely have some performance problems related to not rebooting your computer periodically, right? So, things like that, those are policies that can be put in place. So you can start to proactively ensure better performance and reduce productivity loss with some of these policies that can be done through managing those devices.
So interesting, because I'm a victim of that.
I know.
I am a big victim. And I don't know. I'm just like, how come it's so slow? Why is everything so slow? And then I can't remember who I was working with on your team. And I did some monitoring and he had me do the thing. I don't even remember what it was. And he was like, okay, and we haven't been able to reconnect because I've been traveling, but he was like, okay, I know what the problem is. It's your computer and your connection, possibly your internet issue, which is interesting, because here's what happens. This is where we as the accountants, we just want our computer to work. We don't really care why it does or doesn't. We just want it to work. And so what happens is we don't realize, and on our end, what other potential issues may be. It may not be the application. So if I'm sitting here going, well, if I go on my local computer and I open up my email, it opens up immediately. But when I'm in your environment, it doesn't open up immediately. So we're thinking it can't be my computer because it's opening up immediately on my local device. And that's not even the case at all. That isn't even half the problem, which takes, for me to learn that's important, because that way, if my team's having issues, I can, hey, reboot your computer. Let's see if that helps out. Take your updates.
Well, and take it a step further, right? So you're a firm, you're a business leader, you went to school for accounting. You and your team decide that going fully remote, getting rid of the office is the right thing to do. Who's helping with the IT? Who's helping to make sure that the users are not losing productivity because their technology isn't working correctly? Are you the accountant? Are you the business leader going over to their house to help them with that? Are you investing in some remote monitoring and management? So managing remote workers can be tricky from a technology perspective. The bigger firms, we see that they've got in-house IT, they've got those remote monitoring tools, and they're able to jump in and help, and that's great. But where we see people needing the most help is really in the smaller firms, up to about 50 employees, and then bigger than that, they start to hire their own in-house IT. But remote workers, going back to the security thing, so your threat perimeter, so your service edge, when you're in an office, everybody's coming in. We're going back 20 years, right? There is no such thing as remote work. Everybody's coming into the office. You've got a firewall, you've got your internet, you've got your workstations that are in the office. And when you go home, maybe somebody's taking a backup on a tape.
Right.
As we progressed, that security edge that we have has extended into people's homes. It's extended into people's vacations, to your point. So we really want to make sure that the endpoints are protected now. The endpoint security has become even more important, especially as like malware as a service, ransomware as a service. Have you heard of those yet, Dawn?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, you've got people that are using AI, people that maybe have very low coding skill, that are now able to leverage AI to write code that other people can source from them with a rev share kind of arrangements. We've got these networks of bad actors now, right? The MGM attack is actually thought to have leveraged ransomware as a service. So the bad actors grabbing somebody else's code and using that once they got in. So yeah,
so pampered chefs now. They're a pampered chef business. It's a multi-marketing service now.
Yeah, pyramid scheme.
Pyramid scheme, yeah.
Yeah, pyramid scheme.
So yeah, having that managed detection and response on the endpoint, so that you've got that active threat hunting, you've got a security team behind it that's actually managing those alerts and those logs. And then as business leaders, also thinking about how passwords are managed.
Yes.
We love to see password managers get implemented. It's the best way to go. You've got that master password that's encrypted. You've got the rest of your passwords, and we've talked to some firms, and they often organize by folder, and it's all nice and organized, and you can share the password without sharing the password, right,
Yes.
John? So like a LastPass solution.
Yes.
You can share the password with your colleague because you're going on vacation, but they never actually see the password. It just lets them in. So.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly app access, my big thing, and this is like a rule, and we talk about it. That's key. We talk a little bit about the communication risks associated with being remote, but we talk often about app access. And I don't want you guys, even though we have end device protection, I want you to be living within the environment. I want you within Visory when you're on a daily basis. Like I just open up, I'm Visory, I've got 4 screens going, I'm jamming, I got it all done, because I want to make sure we're being as secure as possible, even if we're just going into QBO. And that's one of the things I think people miss. They miss the fact that you're going into QB. If you are going into QBO without some kind of security, real security, not Norton antivirus, that's like for a 4-year-old these days, right? So we've got to have something much bigger than that, than just local Norton protection. We need to have something bigger. So we talk about, if you're going into an app, if you're doing your work, I want you get into Visory, get in there and do it all through there. So that's really important. I don't want to kill that one, but in our work environment, like I said, all of our apps, these are all of our apps that we utilize on a regular basis, a daily basis. And we are in Visory at all times managing and working within all of these applications. If you go to dawnbrolin.com, you can see this is all in there. My whole playing field is in there, but it's important to have that conversation about the apps and the way you're opening things. And we do use LastPass, but we're moving right now towards Financial Sense because they do have a vault there. It's not as robust as LastPass, but it still is a place where we can store those passwords. But we've been using LastPass for, I think, 12 or 13 years now. And like you said, it's just nice if you don't want to share the actual password, they can still get in and do the work they need to get done, but they're not at such a risk. And so those things are super important. So let's get into how AI is reshaping accounting, which is fun. People are like, well, AI is going to replace the accountant. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry. So if you think that, don't be mad at me. So how is AI actually reshaping accounting? That's what we want to talk about now. And so this will transform, and it already has transformed the industry, as we're talking about that automation of routine tasks, helping us get through that data entry and reconciliation. QBO started AI back when they started doing bank feeds. Well, they really did it in the desktop. They were even doing it in the desktop, the bank feed function, where it would recognize and realize if you're going to Staples, that's going to be office supplies. And it's already was years ago, starting to determine that. We thought that was why. I mean, I don't even know when that started back in the desktop. Had to be maybe 2016, 2017, when they started having bank feeds in QuickBooks. And so that has been really huge. At the end of the day, our whole goal is to boost those, I'll call them mundane tasks, because those don't really require a lot of work, a lot of brain power. If you can set it and forget it, that, hey, it goes to Staples. Then we're like, okay, what AI will do is say, hey, okay, Staples is great, but it looks like you had a $1,700 purchase from Staples. That's abnormal. It's not a 58, 68, 108. Now we're at $1,700. Hey, you might want to look at this transaction. That's where we want our brains, right, Sam?
That's where the machine learning comes in, right? So we're going beyond AI in that case, and we're saying, hey, as a machine, we recognize that this isn't typical. So let's raise a red flag. And that's, you're absolutely right. AI, it's not going to replace accountants. What will replace accountants is accountants that know how to use AI, that they're going to replace the accountants that don't keep learning and learn how to work with AI. I think that's what we're going to see.
Yeah, 100%. And at the end of the day, the goal is enhanced accuracy. So taking the human out of some of those routine tasks that don't require a lot of brain work, which is why I think the accuracy goes down, because people don't pay as much attention to those mundane transactions. We should be focused on those that are the anomalies, right? The things that are abnormal, that look out of reach. There's something here isn't work right. Let the system do that. Then we can put our brains into consideration. Mandy, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that I had an incident with that yesterday, just not paying attention, doing too many things at once, sent a proposal over to a potential client and forgot to change the name on the front page from the previous person to the new person, and they're like, this isn't for us. And I'm like, it's just, it takes that human error of just not paying attention to the small details completely out of it.
So great example of that is, and Carbon does this well. When you're in there and you're typing that I'm blah, 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 see attached, da, 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 you go to hit send and it'll stop and warn you and say, wait a minute, you said you were going to attach something, you didn't attach something. That's a really good example of how AI can stop me from sending the email and not attaching something, right? So those little simple things, compliance and reporting, of course, we know, we need accuracy for that stuff. So thinking about something that belongs on a balance sheet, not on a P&L. Is it a big deal? Is it still a write-off? Sure. But is it a factor now that depreciation is down to 80% or 60% this year? So with depreciation down to 60%, if you put let's use a computer, for example, say it's a $2,500 computer, and we put that computer on the P&L as an expense. What's their capitalization policy? Well, everything over $1,000. Okay. From a compliance perspective, we should have only taken 60% of that asset. But if we put it on the P&L, we get 100. That's a problem. I know that's a very simple example, but I think it makes sense. compliance and reporting matters when legislative changes happen and we're not paying attention to those types of things. Predictive analysis, financial forecasting, allowing AI to do some analysis, budgeting and planning, those types of things that can help us with, well, I'll just say, conversations from an advisory perspective. So if you're being an advisor to your clients, predictive analytics are going to allow us to have the tools we need in order to have those important conversations around financial forecasting and budgeting and planning. So if we have to do that ourselves, hours and hours and hours of an Excel spreadsheet that you just want to cut your eyes out, and then one little calculation breaks and you can't find it. And why do we need to do that? I know what the end result needs to be. Can you just help me get there? I think that that's really important. And certainly talent management is going to be key. Helping with skill development, being able to use AI to train new employees, to train people on how things need to be done, and being able to utilize resources. People will say, well, AI is going to replace my front office person, or they're going to replace my salesperson. That's not going to happen. What it's going to do is take those valuable human beings and put their strengths into play in a different way. Like, people will say, okay, well, how about how AI or the transformation of the industry is utilizing, what was I going to say? The organizers, tax organizers, that's what I was trying to think of. So people who today have 2 or 3 staff members putting together organizers and mailing them, instead utilizing the technology and the tools to send those out through, not necessarily, maybe emails, maybe like Lisio does it really well, sending it through a secure tool. Now, what am I going to do with those 2 or 3 people who used to mail all those organizers or would open them when they came back? We utilize those people for something bigger and better that they probably want to do something different anyway, because who wants to stuff envelopes? I'm just saying.
Yeah, and Carbon actually, they dropped a study a couple of days ago, and what I found fascinating was the distribution of firms that are offering AI training in-house. So whether it's through services, training programs, but looking at it now. So the firms not offering training, 78% said no training was offered if the firm size was 1 to 3. 4 to 10, 77% no. 11 to 20, 61% no. And where we get into the yeses, 35% of firms 21 to 50 employees are offering training of some kind. 42% at the 51 to 200 level. So the bigger the firm, the more that they are recognizing this and investing in it. The smaller the firm, the less they're investing in it. And it could be budgetary constraints. It could be we're just too busy trying to keep up with stuff because we haven't implemented enough efficiency tools yet. But I thought it was really interesting that it was, once we got into what I would consider, a pretty decent sized accounting firm, upwards of 50 employees, now we're starting to see AI training.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like a big deal, right? So I wanted to give a really great example where I use AI, and I happen as ChatGPT is not the only AI, which we've talked about. Their AI is happening within applications, but this is a really good example of ChatGPT and how, for myself as somebody who does IRS representation, those types of things, how I utilized it recently in a case that I was working on. So obviously ChatGPT can help with email writing. It can help with your workflow, like we talked about before, like in financial sense, has a great AI tool. If you want to create a new process for responding to a sales tax notice, whatever, doesn't even matter. You could go into financial sense and say, hey, I want to create a new template of how to handle a certain thing. AI will help you develop that process. So, which is really nice. Responding to notices, I have a great example. I wanted to show people what not live, but an example with some screenshots, how you can utilize the AI to respond to notices and refining responses. So Mandy, you mentioned earlier that, you're developing an email, it's helping you develop emails.
Oh yeah.
And responses.
It's rid of that white page syndrome to where you're just like, okay, I know what I want to say, but how do I start it?
Yes. And yeah, it's throwing the mud on the wall, right, Sam?
Yep.
85% of people polled that were using AI said that it helps them do that exactly, get to the first draft faster. And so what I want to say right here, before you go into your example, is if you're not talking about your teams about the use of AI, You need to, because they're using it. And if you don't know about it, that's when we start talking about it in terms of shadow AI. So it's, it's on the fringes. You don't know what it's doing, what people are feeding it. But supporting the concept of BYO AI, bring your own AI. Maybe you're not delivering it to your employees as a firm, but you know that they're using stuff like ChatGPT. That's okay. We need to be empathetic to our employees, going back to the burnout comment, right? If they find something that helps them be more efficient and get more balance, that's okay, as long as we're using it responsibly. So I'll leave it there because I know we're going to talk about that more.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so in this situation, I had an IRS meal issue with the auditor, and they really wanted more information because the client didn't have any receipts. There were no receipts present. There were obviously credit card statements because people typically don't pay with cash. So I said, hey, draft me a technical response in an IRS audit, why it's not necessary to put lunch, dinner, business meetings in your calendar. Why did I say that? Because the auditor requested a copy of the calendar of the client. And I'm like, well, what do you need the calendar for? Well, I got to see where the appointments are. That's not a thing, dude. I'm like, I bet you've been an auditor for like 25 years, but you're missing the boat on this one. So I said, okay, draft this up. It would draft a response. I'm like, okay, I like some of this, but now what I want you to do, revise it when no receipts and names of attendees is available, only the credit card statements. Okay, so it revised it again. And then I'll say, oh, wait a second, give me some more technical information. The IRS changed the meals percentage from 21 and 22 to 100% due to the pandemic. I want to put that in my response. I want the auditor to have some empathy for my client in that you guys even said, go support the restaurants. So we went out to support them. And so it put it together. And then I said, hey, wait a minute, provide more technical IRS code, because I was getting away from the actual technical side of what the IRS says you can and can't do or how things are supposed to be done. And then at the end of the day, I took pieces out of each of the responses, because it never really gave me the full letter, like, yep, perfect, copy, paste, I'm done. I took paragraphs from each area that I thought was relevant. Then I took that and put it back, I guess I would say my whole last draft in there to form the final copy. And what's nice is you can also say things like, be more professional, be a little harsh, don't be harsh, or what, you know what I'm saying? And it will tell you, hey, that's a little harsh. You want me to change it? Like, it kind of knows. And so at the end of the day, on this particular example, we ended up with a no change on the meals. They left him alone. They didn't and I'm not like the greatest writer, but I was able to use this tool to respond. And you think that the client was happy? Client was pumped. If I had drafted that document, if I draft a letter on my own, I don't know, but I really believe I wouldn't have had such a good outcome, because I was only using the best my brain can do. So I needed help with that, right? And Google doesn't do that, right? So Google isn't really an AI tool necessarily. It's really more of a research tool. It's not going to develop the content for you. It's going to look up to see if anyone else developed content. And I think that's important to point out, So as we were going through here, as you can see here, putting in all my different pieces, keep this, but put back in the pandemic explanation. Those were the kind of pieces that really resonated. And it's all you just like, it's really, you're directing the conversation for the tool. That's what you're doing. You're directing the conversation. And like I said, it was just really great. No change in the meals was awesome. There is no requirement for the IRS code that you have to put meetings in your calendar for every meeting. I mean, I meet with people. Am I supposed to? Oh, wait a minute. I'm meeting with John today. Oh, I don't have it in my calendar. I can't have a meeting. Like, that's not a thing. So through that process, the auditor was like, yeah, you're right. I never even thought of that. So that was really awesome.
That's amazing. And how long would it have taken you to draft up even like the initial response, and then go look up the codes to support it? Like 4 or 5 times longer?
Yeah, and it would have cost the client a whole heck of a lot more.
Yeah. So
I was able to streamline that piece of the job, because that was just one piece of the audit, but it allowed us to, and it also, thinking about IRS representation, when you're able to produce information like that and put it in where it makes really good sense, they stop looking at other areas. They're like, wow, this person's really on their game. They've got great, where these responses make sense. And it helps in the believability, I guess I would say, of what the practitioner and the client is producing and presenting to that particular auditor.
Yeah, it brings instant credibility, right?
Yep.
100%. So as we think about it, the AI tools and daily operations, thinking about idea prompting, that's what we just did. It's idea prompting. Everything was I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense. From the common sense perspective, but I needed the help in the technical aspect. So the idea prompting and threat detection, as we very well know, that's going to be the key, Sam. We're going to talk about that. We need let me go. I can't go back. Can I go back? Yeah,
I think
right.
it
I
comes
figured
up
it out.
again later.
It comes up again later. Yeah, because
think
but
so.
I want to talk, I really want to get into that. The
Yeah.
AI around the threat detection, which is really critical. Now, here's financial sense, and this was kind of what I was talking about earlier in allowing you to use AI to create a template for your workflow. And this is exactly what is going to help us, not replace us. It's going to supplement the things. First of all, who wants to stink and write processes and workflows? I would say no one ever, except for maybe Kelly Parks, because that's what she loves to do, right? So, I mean, you can't argue with Kelly. She loves doing it, but boy, I bet she loves these extra tools that are helping. But you know, she can choose from scratch. That's Kelly. She'd be like, I'm not using AI. I'm going to use my brain.
Can I, Dawn, going back to your point about the credibility that it brings in an IRS representation with being able to draft these really professional letters that bring in the technical. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that AI is not going to do everything for us. AI is a tool like any other, and it's only going to be as good as the person using it and the prompting that goes into it. So we can't just, put in a prompt and be like, great, this is a fantastic letter, right? We really have to fact check it. We have to make sure that it's aligned with our goals and we're not just trusting the output out of the gate.
And that's really key to the point you made about your staff is using it. If you need to be talking about it, because if they're using it, they may not be. I mean, I developed that letter, that response, that was great. Is my staff responding to clients who are emailing them that I don't know about, and they're giving advice based off of AI? Are they you got to verify the information, right?
Yep.
People say, don't say trust but verify. Oh, you absolutely have to say trust but verify. Sorry. It's not my fault, but you have to, right? So those things are key. But this is a great example of, as we talked about earlier, the apps that are evolving and bringing in AI into their tools to allow us to be able to create these templates and workflows. And so we've got to be taking advantage of it. At the same time, we've got to also be a little bit cautious about the ways we're doing it. Certainly workflow, I'm not really worried about workflow, but I'm worried about responses to clients, and I'm definitely worried about responses on notices and things like that.
There's a couple others in your stack too, right? Giraffe, I think, has some forecasting stuff. What else? Bookkeep, I think they've got an AI.
Bookkeep. Oh,
yeah.
Bookkeep.
AI is everywhere in your lineup.
It really is. And the key about that is that it allows us to do the things we really want to do more of, which is, the communications with clients or other things like that. Like we're just trying to figure out how can we make sure that we're using it in the best way possible to minimize the mundane tasks so we can, I just don't want to be in the office for 8 hours a day. I don't. Do not sign me up for 8 hours a day. I'm hovering over 4. Like I'm really into the 4-hour day, works really good for me. So if I'm not utilizing AI in these applications, I can't do that.
Yeah.
There's no way. The human, I remember the days, the 15-hour days. I remember them. And in the 80-hour-a-week badge of honor, which is no longer a thing.
No.
But that's the key. Like when you're thinking about bringing in workforce, bringing in more staffing, they don't want to be working those kind of hours. So if you're not utilizing those tools in your firm, you're going to lose people. And believe me, we already have a staffing issue.
Well, and gone are the days of employers rewarding and valuing the 80-hour workers. It's like, why are you so inefficient that you have to be here that long?
Yes, 100%. 100%. So I think that, as we use these tools, those are the great things. Now, let's think about these constraints. And this is where I want Sam to like pop off on this stuff. Our challenges around it are the privacy, security, transparency, and generalization. Those are big challenges, Sam. So talk to us about that, because you're the one who knows.
Yeah. You have to remember that these large language models like ChatGPT, right? These idea prompting solutions like GPT, like Copilot, they're learning by consuming content created by humans. And so that is problematic out of the gate because of biases, because of other just natural human kind of ways that we look at and manipulate results. And so when we're looking at the output, and that's why I brought it up, I forgot this slide made it in there. When we're looking at the output, we really have to consider the response, and we have to look at it from an ethical nature. We have to look at it from a biases nature. I'll give you an example. Let's say you asked a model to give you the top 10 characteristics of a software programmer. You wanted the top 10 things you should look for on their resume. You know, an AI model might spit out 10 things that sound really good in that response. But when you look at it a little farther, you start to think, well, wait a minute, people of color and minority populations aren't going to have these three things because those are really specific to like a middle-aged white man. So when we look at those responses, we just have to consider and use our common sense and make sure that the results are aligning with our corporate values, with our personal values before we trust it. So I think that's a big one. Generalization, you know, GPT, you've got the GPT-4, which is a little more up to date. It's pulling relevant content that's really recent. On the free version, I think its last update was like 2021.
Yeah, wow.
Still, right? So
September
now you're getting
2021.
responses from content that it learned about 3 years ago. How relevant is it really? So you have to think about those things as too, because it might come out really general. Privacy, Dawn, I know that you don't do it, but I know it happens out there. Don't feed any client or corporate or personally identifiable information into any large language model like ChatGPT, unless it is a private GPT, so a custom GPT that you've built for your firm, which I don't think anybody on this call has done today, or if you're using something that does have a corporate data protection, like a Copilot for Microsoft 365. So there are safe ways that you can use things. And what's interesting about Copilot is that it's grounded, which means it's using your Microsoft tenant, it's using your content, and it's coming up with responses that are grounded in your data. So it's pulling stuff from your PowerPoints and your Excel docs and your Word docs and your emails and your Teams chats. So it's grounding its responses in information that's relevant to your business. GPT is pulling information that's relevant to the World Wide Web. Right. So, you know, considering the sources of the response is going to be really important. And then we talked about the ethical reasoning, dependency on data, double checking, emotional intelligence, right? How think about the response that you're sending. You know, you're pissed off at an employee, and you ask GPT to draft up an email to reprimand them on a thing, right? We need to use emotional intelligence and think about how that's going to come across, and maybe just go back to old school. Let's pick up the phone and have a conversation. So.
Yeah, and those are things that we're going to have to, that are going to come into play more and more as we continue to move forward and learn more about how this is all going to work. And it's happening. And I think I love that point about the emotional intelligence, because that is really, really critical. And the nice thing is you can tell the tool, whatever tool you're using, again, if I'm using ChatGPT as an example, is like, hey, be sensitive to the person receiving this. You can tell it to be emotionally in line with the way you're feeling. And that's why, like, for me, it's like, sometimes you want to respond, you just want to rip off, and you're just like, probably shouldn't do that. And then you can say, okay, let's step back for a minute and then go from there. But I love that. It's such good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where we got to make sure we got about 15 more minutes. And I want to make sure we hit this one. The role of AI in cybersecurity is so important. Good. Okay, Sam, here we go, buddy. Why?
Accounting, you are targets. You are targets not because you have cool stuff about your organization, but because you have cool stuff about your clients, and your clients have cool stuff about their clients. So boom, you're targets, right? Your environment has changed drastically over the last 12 years. It's changed even more rapidly and more drastically in the last 24 months. I would say the last 2 years, there's this race to deliver the most efficient productivity tools in the market. So you are being inundated every day with new apps, new services, new integrations with other apps and services. And we talk about it a lot, Dawn, but like every time we integrate an app with another app, we're opening up a new threat vector.
Yes.
Right? So we have to really think about our firm, think about our firm's threat landscape, where does all of our data live? Who has access to our data? Are we using some of those best practice concepts like least privileged access? So does the part-time bookkeeper in your firm that comes in and helps out on Saturdays really need access to everything in the firm, or is there a really finite subset of data that they need to service the clients that they're helping you with? So those kinds of things need to be looked at, and those are the kinds of things that get overlooked as we scale our businesses. So as firms start to take on more clients and they start to grow, often the idea of data governance gets overlooked. So I think maybe we'll jump to the next one. We can talk about phishing and ransomware. So we've got some cool stuff. So everybody knows what phishing is at this point. Phishing's been everywhere all the time. One of the newer ones has been the crishing, QR phishing.
Oh, yes.
Right? So you're starting to get more people going, I'm not scanning that QR code. I want the URL. So we're starting to see more people with QR starting to put the full URL at the bottom so people can type it in themselves and check to make sure it's a safe link. Now, one that's classic that has not been getting a lot of media attention in recent years is vishing. Vishing. Mandy, are you familiar with vishing? I'm gonna ask you and Dawn. Dawn, you got stuff up there on
I know. I don't know what happened there. Uh-oh.
All right.
That's AI, man. Something's happening. Ransomware. Help me, Sam. Live and in person.
All right, vishing. Either one of you know what vishing stands for?
Is it video?
It is not. It's voice phishing. It's a freaking
Oh.
phone call. It's a phone call to manipulate someone into giving up information. So this is actually how the MGM attack started.
Okay.
It was a phone call to the IT department, and it was a bad actor from overseas that spoke really great English, like not just functional English. It was like really good English, and they were able to pass themselves off as somebody that was on vacation. Because think about it, all of our social medias, our LinkedIns, our Facebooks, our Instagrams, like our stuff is everywhere. So they were able to convince the IT department to help them gain access, even though they couldn't MFA. And so vishing is one that's just like so old school, and yet it's so incredibly effective. So that's why, cybersecurity awareness training and testing becomes so critical. And honestly, it's showing up on all of your insurance forms. If you have a cyber insurance policy, it's asking you for a few things. You're going to see MFA on there, your multi-factor authentication on all systems, which, by the way, if it's not turned on everywhere, and I mean everywhere, you should do it. Turn it on LinkedIn. Don't let your LinkedIn profile get hijacked, because that's a pain to unravel, I'll tell you that. The MFA, the endpoint detection and response. So it's going to ask for a next generation antivirus. And that might just be an EDR solution, that endpoint detection and response. It might be an MDR solution that you've implemented, something that's managed for you. It might even be an extended detection and response, so XDR, where the security solution is extended beyond endpoints. Now it's actually looking at your networks because you have an office. Now it's looking at your Microsoft. So there's different layers and tiers, but the point is it has to be a multi-layered, complementary cybersecurity approach. And awareness training is absolutely critical. Mandy.
It is. I mean, 90% of data breaches happen from somebody clicking on some sort of email that they shouldn't click on. And it's so cheap to buy awareness training. We offer it for $4 a month per person, in your firm. And it just gets people thinking about it. And then when an email comes in, they're like, wait a second, they're telling me this is urgent. that URL doesn't look really suspicious, it just starts to put it in their mind so that they're still second guessing, like, should I really be clicking on this? And that is going to save you so much in the long run.
Oh, absolutely.
And the awareness might even get them to the point where, so there was a recent breach, and it actually compromised some Okta portals. Okta is an identity management platform. It's a single sign-on portal. And the bad actors were able to make carbon copies of these single sign-on portals. So when the user went to log in, it redirected them to the carbon copy. So they took over the domain redirection. So they went to their single sign-on portal. It redirected them. They don't realize anything happened. It looks just like where they always sign in. But when they signed in, it started to say, "Oh, your password needs to be reset." So guess what? Now it's taking over a password. It's saying, "Oh, we need more information to verify your identity." And then the bad actors collected images of government issued IDs. In some cases, they got photographs of the people. So this was like a really sophisticated attack, and hundreds of people were caught up in this. But with cybersecurity awareness training, they're going to start to think, well, wait a minute, would my identity management platform really be asking me for a picture of my ID right now? That's weird. Maybe I should reach out to IT. So
yeah, and those are like so critical. And as we're thinking through, and here's the we're using a QR code here.
Hey, how about that QR code, Dawn?
It's a great example. But no, it's so true. And those things are so critical to think about as we move forward. And I think that's one of the key things as we think about, we're the human. So when we see something, I have a great example. Yesterday on my Gmail account, I thought it got some notification from AAA, which is who I have for my auto insurance. AAA said, here's information regarding your claim. Now my brain has to say, do I need to call Kevin? Did he get in a car accident and he didn't tell me? Like, why is there a claim? And there's a document. Here's your claim document. And instantly, it was funny. I was sitting with Emily and I'm like, this is exactly what we're talking. This was yesterday. This is what we're talking about tomorrow. Like, I could go in there and click on it, and but it looked so good. And I tell my staff, we talk about often, if you get an email in there, it's really easy just to click on the email address. If you click on if you're ever in doubt, click on the email. Some of them are blatantly obvious, the stuff that comes in, but QR codes and documents that come in your email that you think, oh, I'm just going to open, it says .pdf and everything on it, by the way. It all looks and smells rosy, and then you're in trouble. But that's why end device protection is so critical. So as we have here, this great remote worker checklist, just to kind of help people think about it, right? If you're not at this point, you have your stuff together, which, like you said, the cybersecurity insurance is going to require you to have everything in order. So understand you've got the phishing stuff, which I love, because as a matter of fact, it's so funny because I think I emailed Mandy and said, or I text you or something, like, I don't think we're getting this training. And she's like, oh, you're getting it. And I was like, oh, well, then I guess I'm succeeding because I must not, because I haven't been contacted that I've been clicking on bad emails, because that's what you would do. You'd be like, hey, okay, Tracy, you need some training because you've been clicking on stuff you shouldn't be clicking on. Those are the things that we have to be doing. We have to be educating and watching for these things. I love this. It's got a great checklist with phishing, the networks, making sure. I loved your point, Sam, about restarting your computer. Like, just make it part of your process. Every Friday, just shut the thing off. Shut it off. Start it again on Monday or whatever your process is. I feel like every day is a Saturday. But being able to utilize the single sign-ons, those password managers, the personal computers, you got to be really careful about what you're using on personal computers. And again, with remote workers, you don't know what computer they're using because you're not with them. FYI, in case you didn't notice that. So you may give them a computer that's got all the stuff on it and all as well. You've got to make sure you're communicating. You're still using that computer. Your computer's still good, right? If not, then you've got to make some changes. And of course, don't share your work device. Oh, Kev, here, why don't you just, come on and use my computer? No, because I don't know what he's going to click on and isn't going to click on because he hasn't had the training that I've had. So you want to be careful about those things as we go forward. Any comments on this at all, Mandy?
No, I think you did an excellent job there. Absolutely. Just remember to have a multi-layer approach when it comes to your cybersecurity. MFA, an AI spam filtering, AI, next gen antivirus, and then the training. The training is so crucial. And that's a good start. I mean, cybersecurity is not something that you're ever going to finish. You're going to always have to change because our bad actors are changing. And as they become more educated and learn new things, we have to then become more educated and learn new things and apply new technologies.
Yeah. And honestly, at the end of the day, I know I'm never going to know enough. I know that I can't be the one that's, I'll say, responsible, meaning I know that I need to be counting on someone like Visory to make sure that we are. Oh yeah, John wants to know, Sam, what's MDR? John was asking a little bit earlier. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Nope, I answered that one.
Okay.
We're good there. And I would just add, to all of this, and we've been talking around it without really saying it. Build a culture of security within your firm. Talk about it. Just talk about what you're seeing, what you're learning. Talk about tools that you're using, and just build that openness and that culture.
Yes, absolutely. As we move forward, we've got to do that. So, and I want to just really, really stress the fact that if this is not an area you understand, or this is not an area that you're great at, you don't have IT people helping you because you are a small firm, you've got to get yourself in with Visory. And I say that because I know I don't know enough. I count on Sam and Mandy and the team over at Visory to help us be secure. And you know what? Do we want to do two-factor authentication? No. Is it annoying? Yes. It's annoying that every time I open stinking Lacert, I've got to get a text code to your thing. What if I don't have the phone that I get those texts on? What if I'm not? Oh man, now that's a pain. Can someone go in and get my phone and do? I get that 2FA is a pain in the neck, but guess what? Your insurance requires it, so you've got to have it in place. I want to just say, listen, if you need to get yourself straight, you're not on the right path, you've got to get with Visory. They'll give you a free consultation to talk through and walk through all the things you need. If you're a sole practitioner or whether you have a million employees, I don't care. If you don't have this nailed down, you have to nail this down. So Mandy, why don't you talk a little bit about what your process is there? Well, real quick while we wrap this up.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to schedule a time that's good for you. You'll meet with Sam and I. We'll walk through what your current security practice is, and then make some recommendations for you based on what are best practices and really what the FTC, the IRS, and your insurance companies are mandating right now. And then, just to make sure that your business is safe.
And just to take it back to something we've been talking about over the last year or so is the WISP, the Written Information Security Plan, right? So just so people know, because people may not know, you guys will help them with that as well. And that is key.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now not only do you have to have a WISP, but you have to redo it every year.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And you know what? You know who doesn't want to do that? This girl. Not interested. Right. So, and that's what the Visory really is. Basically, you are bringing in a team of people to help you stay in compliance with regards to your cybersecurity and all the things that go along with that. So highly recommend inside sales at visory.net. Visit them, check out their website. They've got a lot of really good resources too, and education as you want to learn more about how you can be in compliance and those types of things is critical. I just want to mention too, for me, go to dawnbrolin.com. I have a dugout that we just held on Monday.
Go to the next slide, Dawn. The next slide, it'll actually have that QR code too.
I wasn't
clicking. We love QR codes.
Here you go, scan to register. So the next one coming up on June 10th, we just talk about all things that we, are on our mind, or you want to ask more about Visory or Financial Sense or Bookie, any of these guys that are all using AI right now, and you want to talk more about it. That's what we're here for, here to help. And hope to see you there. And again, just ready to go. Visory, thank you so much for putting this webinar on.
Thank you, Dawn.
Great information.
You guys have an awesome week.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys. Be good. Bye-bye.